Have you looked at your savings account balance lately and felt this weird, creeping sense of dread? Like, on paper, the numbers are exactly the same. You did everything right. You worked the extra hours, you skipped the expensive dinners, and you watched that little digital number grow. It's supposed to give you peace of mind, right? But instead, you walk into the grocery store, you pick up a carton of eggs, a gallon of milk, maybe a bag of coffee, and suddenly you're staring at a receipt that looks like a utility bill. You look at your phone, check your bank balance, and realize that even though the number hasn't changed, the actual power of that money is just evaporating. It's like watching ice melt in a freezer that you thought was turned on. Honestly, it's exhausting. My name is Bob, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why some people seem to glide through financial chaos while others are constantly stressed about their bank account balance. And what I've realized lately is that we are living through a massive psychological trick. High inflation is this invisible tax that doesn't ask for your permission and doesn't show up on a pay stub. It just quietly erodes the foundation of everything you've built. If you leave your hard-earned cash sitting in a traditional savings account right now, you aren't actually saving it. You're essentially agreeing to lose a little bit of your wealth every single day. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be that way. There's a weirdly comforting flip side to this coin. Once you understand how the game changes during high inflation, you can actually stop playing defense and start playing offense. We're going to talk about a few fundamental shifts in how you look at your cash assets, perspectives that completely changed how I manage my own money. By the end of this video, you're not just going to have a list of places to dump your cash. You're going to have a completely different relationship with your liquidity. You'll understand how to protect your peace of mind without letting your purchasing power get completely eaten alive. Let's start with something we all struggle with, the psychological trap of the cash hoard. We've been told since we were kids that cash is king. Save for a rainy day. Keep 6 months of expenses in the bank. And look, that is phenomenal advice for a normal economy. But when inflation starts creeping up toward 5%, 7%, or heaven forbid, higher, that safety net starts looking a lot more like a trap. Think about it like this. Imagine you bought a brand new car, parked it in a pristine garage, locked the doors, and never drove it. You think, perfect, it's safe. No scratches, no accidents. But you leave it there for 5 years. What happens? The seals dry out. The battery dies. The gas goes bad. The car degrades just by sitting still. That is exactly what high inflation does to your cash. It's the garage that slowly ruins the asset. I remember talking to a friend of mine a while back. Let's call him Dave. Dave was terrified of the stock market. Every time the tickers turned red, his blood pressure went up. So Dave kept $50,000 in a traditional bank account, earning a grand total of 0.01% interest. He felt safe. He loved logging into his app and seeing that flat, unmoving $50,000. But over a 2-year period of high inflation, the real purchasing power of that money dropped by about 10%. Dave didn't lose any money on paper, but when he finally went to use that cash for a down payment on a house, he found out that his $50,000 could only buy what $45,000 used to buy. He lost $5,000 without ever making a bad investment. The takeaway here, in a high inflation environment, holding too much cash is actually an active decision to lose money. You have to redefine what safety means. Safety isn't a stagnant number in a bank account. Safety is preserving your ability to buy things in the future. Okay, so if leaving money in a traditional checking or savings account is financial slow-motion suicide, what's the absolute first step? It's transitioning to a high-yield savings account, or a HYSA. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Bob, really? A savings account? That's your big secret. Bear with me, because a lot of people completely miss the math on this, or they're just too lazy to make the switch. Basically, your brick-and-mortar bank, the one with the big marble pillars down the street, is probably paying you pennies. They take your deposits, lend them out to other people at 7% or 8%, and hand you a 0.01% crumb. Online banks don't have the overhead of those big marble buildings. Because of that, when inflation forces the central bank to raise interest rates, these online high-yield accounts actually pass those higher rates on to you. Imagine you have $20,000 for an emergency fund. At your old bank, that money makes maybe $2 a year. It's a joke. You can't even buy a coffee with that. But if you move that exact same $20,000 into a high-yield savings account earning, say, for 0.5% or 5%, suddenly that money is generating $900 to $1,000 a year. Is $1,000 a year going to make you rich? No, absolutely not. But what it does do is act as a shield. If inflation is at 6% and you're making 5% on your cash, your net loss is only 1%. You've drastically slowed down the bleeding. You've kept your emergency fund completely liquid, meaning you can grab it tomorrow if your car breaks down, but you aren't letting the bank profit off your complacency. The actionable step here is stupidly simple. Pull up your bank app right now. Look at your interest rate. If it doesn't start with a 4 or a 5, spend the 15 minutes it takes to open an account at a reputable, FDIC-insured online bank and move your cash. It's the lowest hanging fruit in personal finance. But let's say you have cash that you know you won't need for the next 3 months, 6 months, or a year. Maybe you're saving for a wedding next summer, or you're waiting out a crazy housing market. Leaving all of that in a savings account is fine, but you can do better and you can get even more protection. This is where things like short-term treasury bills, T-bills, or certificates of deposit, CDs, come into play. Now, don't let the financial jargon scare you off. A treasury bill is literally just you lending money to the government. And unless the entire country collapses, in which case the money in your wallet won't matter anyway, you are guaranteed to get your money back with interest. Have you looked at your savings account balance lately during and felt this weird is that they allow you to lock in a guaranteed return. On paper, I remember back the numbers are exactly the same. My grandmother used to buy me these paper savings extra hours. You skipped the expensive dinners as a kid, and you getting a piece of paper that said, "I could have $50 supposed to give you peace of mind." Was the ultimate buzz. But instead, you walk into the grocery store, you pick up a carton of eggs, but grandma understood something, maybe a bag of coffee. When the economic weather staring at a receipt that looks like locking in a guaranteed, you look at your phone. Check your bank balance, is like putting on a financial and realize that even though the break down how this works practically, the actual power of $10,000 earmarked for a vacation next year. It's like watching that into a 6-month freezer that you thought was turned on. You're locking honestly, it's exhausting. Interest rate. My name even if the economy takes a weird turn next month, I spend way too much time everywhere else start dropping. Human psychology, and why the strategy one love to use financial is called a CD ladder, constantly stressed about their bank account. Instead of putting all your cash into one bucket, is that we are living through a massive psychological. You put a chunk into a 3-month high inflation is this chunk into a 6-month bill that doesn't ask for your permission and every few months, one of those chunks matures, it just quietly erodes the foundation. If you don't need it, everything you just roll into a new one. If you leave your hard-earned cash beautiful, sitting in a traditional savings liquidity right now and high yield, you aren't actually you're never completely locked. You're essentially agreeing to lose a little bit of every single drop, every single interest out of the system. But here's the thing: now it doesn't have to talk about a slightly. There's a weirdly comforting flip side because at a certain point, once you understand how the beyond your emergency during high inflation, short-term goals, you can actually stop. You have to realize that cash and start terrible long-term vehicle. We're going to talk about during high inflation fundamental shifts. The goal shouldn't just be to find a better bank account. The goal should be to convert some of that melting cash into things that actually by the end of this video, you're not just going to have real places to dump your cash. Things you can touch. You're going to have things that represent different relationship cash flowing businesses. You will understand how to protect your peace of mind. If inflation goes up, without letting your purchasing power get because the prices of things go up. The price of something we all struggle with. The price of commodities psychological goes up. Trap. The price of the products that companies we've been told since we were kids that cash is king. If everything is getting more expensive, for a rainy day, who wins? Keep 6 months of expenses. The people who own the stuff that is getting more expensive. That is phenomenal. If you own a piece of real estate economy, the value of that property inflation starts creeping up toward 5%, and the rent you can charge, or heaven forbid, to higher. If you own shares of a great company, looking a lot more like a company that makes grocery products and medical supplies, imagine you bought a company is going to raise its prices in a pristine garage, lock the doors, their revenue goes up. You think as a shareholder, it's safe. No scratches. I'm not telling you to go out and buy a skyscraper tomorrow, but you leave it there for 5 years. But you can start shifting your mindset away from how many dollars do I have, the battery dies, how many productive assets the gas goes bad, I own, the car to buy low-cost index funds or ETFs. That is exactly what high inflation stock does to your cash. When you buy an index fund, the garage that's slowly buying a tiny slice. I remember talking to a friend of mine, biggest companies in the world. We'll call him Dave. When inflation hits, terrified these companies adapt. Every
They
time
raised
their
their
prices
prices,
red,
their earnings
his blood
grow,
pressure went up,
and your investment
so
tracks right
Dave
along
kept
with them.
$50,000
It's the ultimate
in a traditional
long-term
bank account,
antidote
earning
to
a
the eroding
grand
power
total of
of inflation.
0.01%.
But I have to give you a
interest.
massive warning
He felt
here, because
safe.
I see
He
people
loved logging
make
into
this
his app
mistake
and
all the
seeing that
time
flat,
when they get panicked about
unmoving
inflation.
$50,000.
It's what I call the Whiplash
But over a
effect.
2-year period
You
of
get
high
so
inflation,
tired of watching
the real
your cash
purchasing
lose
power
value
of
that
that
you decide to
completely
completely
overreact.
Dave didn't
take
lose
every single
any
dollar
money on
you
paper,
have,
but when he
including your
finally went to
emergency
use
fund,
that cash for
your
a down
rent
payment
money
on a
for
house,
next month,
he found
your
out that
grocery
his
budget,
$50,000
and you throw it all
could
in
only
the stock
buy
market or crypto
$45,000
because you're
used to buy.
desperate for returns.
He lost $5,000
You say,
without
I
ever
can't let
making a bad
inflation
investment.
win.
The
And
takeaway
then,
here,
3
in a
weeks later,
high-inflation
the stock
environment,
market has a bad
holding
week.
too much cash
It drops 10%.
is actually an active
Or your
decision
car's
to
transmission
lose
blows
money.
up.
You have
Suddenly,
to redefine
you need
what
cash
safety
immediately.
means. But your
Safety
cash is tied
isn't
up
a
in
stagnant
investments
number
that
in
are
a
currently
bank account.
down. Now you're forced to sell your
preserving your
investments at a
ability
loss
just
to
buy
buy for your
things
car
in the future.
You panicked about a 6%
So if leaving
inflation
money
rate
in a
and
traditional
tried to
checking or
escape it,
savings
you took a
account
10%
is financial
or
slow
20%
motion
loss in a
suicide.
matter of days.
What's the absolute
It's heartbreaking
first
to
step?
watch. It's
The rule of
transitioning to
thumb
a
has to
high-yield
remain
savings
sacred.
account. Never
Or a
invest money
HYSA.
that you will need within
Now,
the
I know
next
what you might be
3
thinking.
to 5 years.
Bob, really?
Cash is a
terrible
terrible
long-term
long-term
investment.
That's your big secret.
But it is an excellent
Bear with
short-term
me,
shock
because a
absorber.
lot of people
You have to be
completely
willing
miss
to
the
accept
math
that a
on this.
portion of your wealth,
Or they're
your
just too
emergency
lazy
fund,
to make the switch.
is going to lose a little bit of
Basically,
value to
your
inflation,
brick-and-mortar bank,
and that is
the
simply
one with
the
the
premium
premium
marble
you pay
pillars
for
down the
safety
street
and
is
peace of
probably
mind.
paying you pennies.
Think of it like insurance.
They take your deposits.
You don't get mad that your
lend them
car
out to
insurance
other
costs
people
you
at
money
7%
every month
or
without giving you a
8%,
return.
and
You
hand
pay
you
it
a
so that if things go wrong,
0.01%
you don't lose
Online
everything.
banks,
Your
don't
cash
have the
emergency
overhead
fund
of those
is
big marble
insurance for your
buildings.
life. Because
Treat it
of
like
that,
that.
when
There's
inflation
one more
forces the
asset
central
class we
bank
need to talk
to
about,
raise
and
interest
honestly,
rates,
it's the
these
one that
online
people
high-yield
talk about
accounts
the least,
actually
even though
pass
it
those
has the
higher
highest
rates
return
onto
on
you.
investment by a
Imagine
mile.
you have
It's yourself.
$20,000 for an
Your earning
emergency
potential.
fund.
Think
Think
about
about
the
the
math
math
for a
that
second.
money makes
If
maybe
you have
$10,000
$10,000
in cash.
it's a joke,
And
you can't even buy a coffee.
You
with
managed to
that.
find an
But if you
incredible
move that
investment
exact
that gets
same
you a $20,000
into
you
a
made
high-yield
$1,000
savings account earning,
That's
say,
great.
for
But if you take
0.5%
$2,000 of that
5%
cash,
and
suddenly
spend it on
that money
certification,
is
a
generating
high-level course,
$900
mentor,
to
or
$1,000
learning a
a
specific
year.
skill like
Is
coding,
$1,000
public
speaking,
speaking, going to make
digital
you
marketing,
rich?
or project
No,
management?
absolutely not.
And that skill
But what
allows
it
you to
does do
negotiate a
is act as a
$10,000
shield.
raise at your job.
If inflation
or start a
is
side
at
hustle that
6%
makes an extra
and you're making
$1,000
on your
month,
cash,
what
your
was the
net
return on
loss
that
is
investment?
only 1%.
It's astronomical.
You've drastically
Warren
slowed
Buffett
down the
always
bleed.
says that the
You've kept your
absolute
emergency
best hedge
fund
against
completely
inflation
liquid
is your own competence.
meaning you can grab it
If
tomorrow
you're the best
if the car
surgeon,
breaks down,
the best mechanic,
but you aren't letting
the
the
best
best
teacher,
profit off
or the
your
best
complacency.
programmer in your town,
The actionable
it
step
doesn't matter
here
what the currency
is
is doing.
stupidly simple.
People will
Pull
always
up your
swap
bank
their
app right
goods
now.
and services.
Look
for
at your
skills.
interest rate.
If
If it doesn't
inflation
start with a
triples
4
the
or a
price of
5,
everything,
spend the 15
your
minutes it
fees
takes to
or
open
your
your
salary
account
will
at a
ultimately
reputable,
adjust.
FDIC
because your
insured
online
skill
bank
is
and
indispensable.
move your cash.
I remember a time
it's the
in my
lowest
life
hanging
when I was
fruit
absolutely
in personal
obsessed
finance.
with optimizing.
But let's say you have
every
cash that you know
single
you
dollar.
won't need for the
I was
next 3
spending
months,
hours
6
researching
months,
which
or a year.
online bank
Maybe you're
paid
saving
an
for a
extra
wedding next summer,
0.05%
where you're waiting out a crazy
interest.
housing market.
I was stressed.
Leaving all of that
tracking
in a savings
spreadsheets
account is fine
late into the night.
But you can do
and then
better,
it hit me,
and you can get even
I
more
was spending
protection.
10 hours a week.
This is where things
to
like
make an extra
short-term
$20 a
treasury
year.
bills, it was
T-bills,
ridiculous.
or
I stopped
certificates of
doing
deposit
that and
CDs
used those 10
come
hours a
into
week
play.
to learn how to
Now,
produce high-quality
don't let the financial
video
jargon
content
scare you
and
off.
understand digital
A treasury
marketing.
bill is literally just you lending money to the government. And unless the entire country collapses, in which case the money in your wallet won't matter anyway, you are guaranteed to get your money back with interest.